Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everyone. Having some challenges in your life? Know that you should be making some changes. You haven't made those changes. And if this resonates, you know what I'm talking about. Inside of you, something is screaming, saying, this is not working. This is not the way it's supposed to be. You really need to change that. But we don't, because we have a fear or we think negative. Why do we think negative? There are reasons behind that. It's almost automatic. A lot of times we go to the negative thought instead of the positive thought. And how do we make that change? What's the process for making a change that we know needs to take place in order to move our lives forward? We're going to talk about that today. Something that she helps many with. And a lot of this comes from her book, which is called Love Yourself, Love Your Life. Dr. Ann Creekmore, psychologist, is back with us today. How are you?
Great, Steve. How are you?
Doing well. And this is kind of the foundation for a lot of things in life. This whole thing about change and the fear of change and the process of change. What are the major pieces before we're going to make a change? And again, let's just assume, and this is my belief, we all have the answer. We already know what we need to know. We're just afraid to confront it sometimes. We're afraid to take action sometimes.
Right.
But what's involved in the process of change? What's involved? What's going on there?
Well, in chapter 2, focusing inward, I kind of describe how to come to a decision to make a change or to take an action. But the pattern of change or the process of change, I call it the 3 A's. One is the awareness. First is just to get anywhere, we need to know, to be aware of where we are in the first place, as our place of origin. Then we need 2, A, for acceptance. We have to accept where we are. And then we can figure out, well, all right, now I have a destination in mind. How can I get there? Because I'm here now. Then what do I need to do to get to where I want to be? And then 3, we have to have action. We have to finally take those steps to go to that destination. So I think if anything breaks down anywhere, we really aren't moving in a direction of the change.
How do you define awareness?
Well, it's just basically reality, thinking about where you are in reality. It's like if you were to say, like, you need to get somewhere to go to a destination in your car, you first have to look and say, well, I'm here on this street, and then if I want to go to that place and it's on that street, you can GPS, or if you could have spatial memory, you just know the ways to get there. But you have to start with the awareness of really what is going on, which is a process of soul searching a lot of times. Like when the focusing inward, I think we did, this last time, where you kind of have to say to yourself, well, if these are all the things going through my mind, which one is the worst I need to attend to? Which one's feeling the yuckiest? And then you have to ask, well, what am I feeling and what's really bothering about it? That's kind of your awareness of your situation, what you're going through internally, not just reacting kind of impulsively on something that might not even be what's really bothering you. And then you have to kind of accept what we're feeling and that why you're feeling that way and what maybe you need to be able to start to ask yourself, well, what will feel good if I do this solution, that solution? And then one that feels right without feeling guilty or anxious, then you have to do the 3rd step. You got to actually carry it out, right? Ideas are funny little things. They only work if you work. You can come up with an action plan, but if you don't execute it, then you can't say it didn't work, right? You just didn't do it. That's why it might not have worked. And even if it doesn't work exactly the way you planned, you still compliment yourself on it for being willing to take responsibility, to take action, to make yourself feel better. And usually just the thought of taking the action, makes you feel better in the first place. So
would you say with those 3 words, awareness, acceptance, and action, that it would be impactful to write the 3 words down and your feelings connected to them, or, the
Yeah,
action, when you get to the action part, what
right.
action you're thinking of taking?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's
Hmm.
always good. Hmm.
Yeah, just seeing it in front of you, understanding what's going on. Because I find it so hard for us to process things. Our minds are bouncing all over the place.
Right.
And let's be honest, many of us don't like change. So a lot of this we ignore, or we try to ignore it. It keeps coming back. We hear it in our mind, whatever it might be. You could be in a relationship, and speaking from within is like, this doesn't feel right. Why are you doing this? Then you talk to yourself, because it's not convenient. I can't get out of this right now. This is not going to work. We got a house, blah,
Right.
whatever it might be. But
Right.
it keeps calling you. It keeps speaking to you.
Exactly. Your feelings are your guides, and
Mhm.
you need to follow your feelings, soul search. Anger is like the tip of the iceberg of your feeling. It's more like, that kind of put up your dukes, gives you some energy to maybe do something, but it doesn't really enlighten you as to what it is that you really need. You have to ask yourself, what's below the anger? Like, am I feeling sad or hurt, rejected in some way? Am I feeling anxious, overwhelmed, scared of something, apprehensive? You've got to get to the deeper feelings. And then, well, why is that? Sometimes it can be just triggers. It could be a small thing, that incident that occurred in certain interaction interpersonally in the current that's actually triggering a lot of past pain, in which case you have to kind of accept that. The acceptance would be that I'm in more of an origin of my negative thinking, not in a situation that's really as toxic as I think it is. It's because it's laden with all the emotional pain from the past. And maybe it's time to do some inner work to be aware this shows me I have pain inside, emotional pain or grief, that I need to release or work through to
Mm.
get to feeling calm in my own self and to some acceptance of the grief process that you are experiencing to get to that better phase before you can rebuild.
Yeah.
It's kind of going within to really see, or you may be having limiting beliefs, that have been triggered, just feelings of abandonment or something, or hurt, and then where does that come from? Is that really in the present, or is it in my thought process? Did somebody really say something negative to me, or am I saying something negative to me? In which case it would be about catching that negative thought you're in yourself and thought stopping it and putting in a positive so that you feel better at that moment to move into doing what needs to be done or what will make you feel good.
Mm. I got a flash here when you said the word anger, and I got to believe that a lot of people may be in a situation and they're angry at somebody else, but they're probably angry at themselves, or that anger within themselves is fueling the overall anger because they didn't make a change. They didn't fix what needs to get fixed because of many different reasons. And, we just identified them. We have a fear, logistics, finances and all of that. But it may present as just, I'm angry. I'm just mad at the whole situation. You're really mad at yourself a lot of times.
Right. But actually, guilt or feeling uncomfortable with yourself is actually like anger turned in on yourself, and then sometimes it's easier to project out.
Right.
But it would be okay to ask yourself, do I have a reason to feel guilty? And then you can ask yourself a couple of questions, did I break a promise, for example? This is your conscience, is good conscience stuff. Did I break a promise? Maybe I need to make amends. You can make amends and make it better. Or am I doing something that I really feel uncomfortable with in my value system? If I breaking the law or thinking about breaking the law, taking something, am I having some sort of unethical? And then you can do something about that and not do it. But other than that, it's really like not to put yourself down that you're really doing anything wrong. It's more like maybe just some unconscious or subconscious beliefs, negative thoughts you have about yourself, that you're not good enough, or that you're not doing things right, or and that needs to be addressed. That right at that level is to be aware, oh, it's my negative thinking bothering me. And I need to accept that I have this negative belief about myself that I need to expel, that I need to release, I need to heal from.
The negative stuff. Let's go there.
Okay.
Why do we think negative? Why does it come up? And we're all told, just be positive, be positive. Easier said than done. Why do you think we gravitate toward the negative?
Right. Well, it just seems like we are negative thinkers.
Yeah.
And we just have that tendency, that ability now to think negatively. And that is something that doesn't get us anywhere, that we really have to, face within ourselves, be aware first and accept that we're doing that, and then take action to change that. And it can come from anywhere, usually your childhood, where certain things happened and you take them a negative way, or they were said negatively, or it was a negative little traumas, and then you carry that around with you. You just bring the past into the present moment all the time, and it just gets up and clouds your whole reality experiences that you're having. You're seeing them through the lens of negative darkness, and then it doesn't improve when you do that. So you've got to take the action to stop it.
Do you think that we ride the negative train more often than not because it's almost an evolutionary thing to protect us? We remember those negative things. What's negative? You're a kid. You're standing with your parents.
Right.
You take a step onto the street. Stop! What are you doing? Which obviously they're protecting you, but you have that part of your brain that stays negative because it's a protection mode. You think is that evolutionary with an eye on evolution? Do you think that's what's going on there?
I agree. Yes, that it's a protective. There are a lot of protective defense mechanisms that we used against emotional pain, and just comes part of our default. It kind of to protect us.
Right.
Even having the idea, that I'm stupid could be like a protective. I mean, it isn't protective. It doesn't help, but it might have come along at a time that you made a decision. It's just easier to think that way and let it go, and it's almost default, it's not conscious. But, I use as example, my son, when he was real little, he was sitting downstairs in a little toddler chair on the floor watching, I think, Barney, his favorite, and I heard a little screech because I was walking up steps, just put something in the linen closet, and I heard a screech. So I rushed down the steps, and he had actually was holding himself up by his arm. He's on the floor. He wasn't going anywhere, or he was already on the floor, but he's leaning into the side, holding himself have head cocked so we can see the TV straight, right? Beginning of a soft addiction, right? But he had just held himself in this funny position, and of course I saw him, and I just popped his little seat back up, and he was fine, the whole time. But what happens when we do that as children internally in our psychological invisible state? A parent can't see when we've made this sort of correction that makes us tolerate a pain or a situation we're in emotionally. And there's nothing, they can't see it. And it feels fine to the child. It felt much better than falling on his head, right? His house like this. I still watch. So we have all these inner corrections we do invisibly, psychologically. These are all our defense mechanisms that help us stay, and relieve our pain at the moment. Sure. But we have to go to therapy really to uncover them and to release them, because they're really often getting in our way. I mean, it'd be uncomfortable to be spending life with your head holding on the arm and your head cocked. It's kind of silly looking, and we wouldn't do it. But internally, that's kind of what we do, really. And so we've got to get at our defense mechanisms and then release them.
Yeah, slight digression. We must have a child of the same age, because the Barney thing, remember it vividly. And my daughter used to sit in a little bouncy seat, put her in front of the TV,
right,
and would watch Barney. Everything's great until the closing song where they sing, I love you, you love me.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
right away, she would start crying because she knows the show is over. And I'd come
Aw.
running and I'd hit the,
Aw.
back then VCR. I'd hit rewind, get back in there.
That's funny.
But,
Oh, so
I
cute.
I have this theory. I want to test it out on you.
Sure. Mhm.
Your earliest memory. Think back. And we're talking about kids, so that's what sparked this. Think back to your earliest memory as far as you can go,
Mhm.
whatever age it is.
Mhm.
Is it a negative memory? Think hard. First one.
No.
Interesting.
No. And early memories do mean things for people. I mean, they do affect you, and they're important in understanding the person. But how about you? What would you say?
You're such a psychologist. You flip it around to me. It's I have this thought. If you can go back to the first memory, many times it's negative because you remember the negative ones to protect you. Going back to what we were talking about before. And when I think back, as far as I can go, they're negative. And they're, the things like, I guess I was 3 and I was waving bye-bye, standing on a radiator, waving bye-bye. I think it was to my aunt. And whoop, I fell, hit my head, cracked it open.
No.
My mom, I remember her freaking out. Then it was another situation in that same, living in the same place. So I must have been around 3. And, the positive memory is, well, I went to a pool, I had a great time. But then comes in the negative. I got a brutal sunburn that I even remember like bubbles, off my skin. It was that bad, like blisters. I don't know if there's some, if there's a reason why I don't want to remember negative memories, but that's the ones that come up. That's what I get. I don't know. I don't know if that's a protection thing.
Yes. Well, I know in the Landmark Forum, they kind of, which is a motivational, educational, kind of getting at your 19 distinctions, they call them, your defaults in your system. You think back and certain memories and things. And so that you can kind of discover what kind of default patterns, thinking patterns, negative things, if you will, like, well, there's something wrong here. Might be the first one when you're little, like that. There is something wrong here. Maybe when you're a teen, there's one about, I don't belong here, So, but back then so that would be like the one more about, there's something is really wrong. And it seems like it was tied into your physical well-being.
Yes.
Yes. And so there's that default that something's wrong, is that I'm going to get hurt, or I'm going to have a physical problem, or, it's just something that just those memories would be like that kind of a limiting belief.
Interesting you bring that up, because what I'm referring to is they are physical situations. Got another one. I must have been like 4 at daycare, and on this real boat, like they had a real boat that part of the playground kind of thing. And I remember playing on it, and then I fell, hurt my head, had to call mom. Like,
there's something wrong here.
There's something wrong with my head.
I'm always getting hurt.
Yeah, but that's
physically hurt and harmed. And I don't know. And that can be kind of a program that people would carry. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, they tend to kind of have, it makes it easier to cope in a way. Because it's not unexpected, at least, right? It's kind of like part of the package, but it isn't. I mean, you're not going to get hurt, but that is kind of in there. It sounds like that something is going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard that the first thought is negative. Those negative thoughts we have, how do we reframe it? How do we turn it around? How do we make it positive?
Right. Well, it's kind of like, it's kind of like your mind is like this glass of muddy water, if you will. And if you take a pitcher, right, of clear, pure water, and you keep pouring it into your glass, the mud's going to keep flowing out and flowing out. And eventually you're actually going to have a glass of clear, pure, clean water. And so we have to do that. We have to keep pouring the positive into ourselves and getting the negative released out until we can get it so that we don't have to constantly be pouring clear. We can just add some clear. But we have a clear mind of positive thoughts. So the process is that to catch, to be aware, maybe take 10, 15 minutes to see, well, what do I say to myself? What am I thinking? And maybe you can even find a attitude, if you will, but a bunch of negative thoughts that kind of fit together as a total belief or attitude about yourself. I'm not worthy, or I'm going to have accidents, or whatever it is. And then you have to thought stop. I mean, the second step is you start to be aware. And anytime you have these negative thoughts, you have to say to yourself, wait a minute, stop. I'm not going to go there. It's just going to make me feel bad and create that situation, actually, because it'll keep making you feel a certain way and behave a certain way that'll kind of lead to that. And then you just have to keep that process. I mean, we have to keep that process of catching the negative thoughts, putting in the positives.
Yeah.
So maybe instead of doing it 300 times a day, we can do it 15 times a day and get better, having more clear, positive thoughts.
It's a process.
It's a process, exactly.
I found it in myself that when a negative thought comes up, or you get triggered, somebody cuts you off in traffic. Mm-hmm. Obviously, for that moment, you're like, what are you doing? You could take that for a half hour. You get on the phone, right. You're talking with somebody. You're not going to believe what happened at the corner of blank and blank. Somebody cut me off. I mean, this could have happened, blah, blah, blah. But when you start catching yourself and reframing it, it lasts much less.
Right.
And sometimes I've even gone back and said, why was I even worried about that? Why did it even bother me? Right. It's almost to laugh at it.
Well, when you bring it up and you bring up that there's so many memories, for example, about getting hurt, it makes sense that something like that would aggravate you. You know what I mean? Like it's like there's that feeling that something is going to hurt you, physically. And then if something like that happens, that would be triggered that. Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it trigger some of the emotions?
And it's a physical event.
A physical event that could lead to your being harmed. So it would make sense that might be something that would trigger you or anybody who's had that.
I think I just got psychoanalyzed without even knowing
I
it.
Apologize.
I think it's fine. No, you made a connection there, and I'm going to be thinking about that because
we talked about it, but it makes sense, doesn't it? Because fear is we either have fear or love, and what we really fear, right? FEAR, false evidence appearing real. We really want to get to that connectedness. So we're provided for, that we're good, that, and that if we just can get to that level, it'll all start creating.
Yeah.
We don't want to get to fear. We want to get love and peace.
Well, I need to wear a helmet. That's what it is.
That's you.
How do we find you? Psychology, is it Psychology Today?
Yes. That's probably the easiest way. It's a directory for psychologists, and you just go there and my name and picture will be right there, and Creekmore, and you can just click it. It'll go to my website and my websites, because I have different books and products and hypnosis MP3s to help your mind get to the positive, and I'll be tied into that website there.
So just to confirm, psychologytoday.com.
Yes.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for today. You've given us a lot to think about.
We don't release those negative, grieve and cry enough, and then give you pure love.
Awareness, acceptance, and action.
Exactly.
That's our homework assignment. And thank you so much for today. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for all your sharing. It really helps everybody.
Thank you. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind, like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind, like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama, like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply STOP to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.